Hi everyone. Really sorry about that. A Zoom issue, as you can imagine, in this uh, day and age. But yeah, I'm going to just crack on. I'm going to try and go as fast as possible so that, well, not as fast as possible, but I'm going to try to get it all done in about 22 to 25 minutes. So I hope that's all right, everyone. I'm Ioan Marc Jones, Head of Content at Charity Digital. I'll be the host and presenter for today's session, and it's on the state of service delivery in 2025. Feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat as ever and let us know where you're joining from today. First things first, a couple of house rules. The session is being recorded and will be uploaded to watch on demand at a later date. The slides and other resources will be made available, so don't worry if you've missed anything. I'll also put my email down, so if you have any questions about today's session, you can just message me directly because I will be rushing through it as quickly as possible, and I know that can be a bit frustrating. We'll share the slides, so that will be available as well. During the session, please ask Q&A questions in the Q&A section, which I'll try to address at the end if we have a bit of time. We can potentially run a bit over. I'll have someone confirm that and share any other comments, experiences, and advice you have in the chat section. Finally, if you do encounter any sound or image issues, please let us know in the chat and we'll do our best to sort of make sure that's okay. All right, I'm going to begin. So yeah, the session will explore some of the core ideas behind our Reimagining Services campaign and look at how we see the service delivery landscape evolving in 2025 and beyond. So to start, what do we mean by reimagining services? We run impact campaigns every year. In 2023, we covered climate action. In 2024, it was digital inclusion. And in 2025, we turned our attention to the main reason charities exist, their services. We know that services have been under pressure in recent years. The cause of that pressure largely stems from political and economic challenges. We can go back at least to the 2008 recession and the preceding years of austerity, with reductions in public spending, increasing dependence on charities. Then came the Brexit and the loss of EU funds. Then the pandemic shattered the economy and lockdowns forced charities to shift ways of working. Then came the ongoing cost of living crisis, putting additional financial pressures on charities. Many charities struggled to meet demand, and some had to drain their resources, others had to close. We chose the title Reimagining Services to focus on the positives in these challenging times, to focus on opportunities in the sector. We want to help charities feel more expansive and creative to help them find new solutions to old problems. Reimagining Services also focuses on values as we move forward as a sector, looking at how charities can uphold better standards of ethics and responsibilities for their communities. We speak as a peer. As a charity ourselves, we have our own insights into the challenges and opportunities of the sector. And like any charity, we are learning as we go. So let's talk a bit about our aims of the campaign. So we reflected that although service delivery is a central part of charity work, we actually have very few conversations about it as a sector. So think about the amount of services you have or the amount of sort of conferences you've attended. I haven't actually attended one until potentially today that's completely dedicated to service delivery. But what was more interesting for our point of view was that we publish so much content on fundraising, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, all these other topics, 12 hubs we have. And the least engaged one was service delivery, which seemed a bit strange to us because service delivery is at the heart of what we do. So we wanted to provide more information in that area, especially around digital. So the aims of the campaign was to help charity professionals unlock new approaches to service delivery, maximize value, and support service users across the country. Our approach includes exploring how charities use tech in their services, focusing on responsible and ethical use. Complex factors are at play when it comes to service delivery, and we don't pretend that digital is a silver bullet. In fact, we don't even believe that you always need to use digital, or even often need to use digital, or need to use digital at all. But we do want to help you make the most of digital as one element of maximizing value to service users. So in 2025, let's dig a bit deeper into charity services. In 2025, charity services are vital. Services are vital. We know that. But charities offer many different types of services, some of which are addressing basic survival needs of a community, such as food banks and shelters. Others help in emergency situations, while others still work towards our future health by defending the environment. Some charities support the well-being of a particular community, while others advocate for a fairer and more just society. Many charities are essential, with communities relying on them for health, well-being, and a good quality of life. But it's worth noting that often charities resist this idea that services are essential, seeing it more as plugging a gap created by an unfair and unjust system. For example, the Trust for Trust says, it's not right that anyone needs a food bank. We can change this by ensuring that people have enough income for the essentials. In this way, in 2025, charity services are vital, but at the same time, it's okay to acknowledge they're not the best long-term solution to particular problems. Social and systemic change should always be front of mind, especially when developing services, something we will touch upon later in the session. Charity services are essential. They are also, as mentioned, under pressure. What does that pressure look like? They're under pressure from limited funding, economic and political decisions, operational demands, but the pressure is felt most acutely inside charities in the work you perform day to day, day in, day out. That includes pressure on time, pressure on money and resources, high demand for services, which is coupled with a pressure on resources, lack of adequate infrastructure to support missions, feeling that there's no end in sight with the problems you're addressing, the psychological impact of supporting others through traumatic and difficult times, facing resistance to change, problems with staff and volunteer recruitment and retention, and stress due to high workloads. This is all coupled with some external factors. So despite the challenges, the last few years have demonstrated that charities can achieve a lot with a little. As the sector's work continuously reminds us, it's possible to change the world for the better bit by bit with few resources. But just because charities have demonstrated resourcefulness and resilience, that does not mean they should be pushed beyond their limits. When charity services in the UK fail to meet demand or are forced to strip back or close, people and communities suffer. The environment for work, charity work, is shaped by a variety of different people and organisations, ranging from politicians to members of the public and grant funders and commercial businesses. All have a responsibility to ensure the health of our society, including supporting the work carried out by charities. Charity funds broadly depend on the economy, state spending, public donations, and the approaches of grant funders. We know that state spending has been in decline for many years, as we mentioned earlier, and we know the public, due to financial constraints, have less expendable income. And we know too that grant funding is presently harder to secure and often more demanding, with, from our perspective at least, an increase in restricted grants and so on. And we hear that a lot from the sector. The commercial sector influences our ability to provide services too, because receptiveness of other sectors to collaborate, bring in their strengths and perspectives and connections to the table, help charities to boost their services, and the absence of that can prove damaging. That might mean workplace volunteering, corporate sponsorship and partnership, or even just support with tech and consultancy. Beyond these external factors that shape the charity environment, there is only us, charities ourselves. And for the rest of the presentation, we will focus more on what is within our control as a sector when it comes to delivering the best possible services. And that leads us to do that, let's look at the findings from our recent Reimagining Services Survey. The survey had 100 responses from people who work in the sector in service delivery, and the findings shed some light on charity services in 2025, including how charities use digital. This is the first time we shared the results, so we hope they're insightful, and we will share them. There's a lot more of them to come in the future, within the next month. So first things first, we found that on average, charities rate their ability to deliver services at just over 7 out of 10. Now, historically, that's pretty consistent with the recent past, and it's encouraging in a sense because despite the challenges discussed earlier, charities still feel pretty confident in their ability to deliver services to meet their user needs. Then there's a problem. Though overall confidence in service delivery was high, charities rated their digital service delivery at less than 6 out of 10, which shows a clear divide between digital and in-person. And what's preventing successful digital service delivery? We asked our respondents, the survey respondents, and they said not being able to afford necessary hardware, software, and infrastructure was the big one. Not having enough time to create a digital strategy, which we'll touch on later. Not having enough training and resources generally. So that substantiates the point that we made earlier. Internal pressures are hitting the charity sector, and it creates a paradox. Digital can help relieve operational pressures, but charities cannot fully embrace digital because of operational pressures. So let's look a bit deeper into digital and service delivery. The pandemic forced charities to go online, and we are still seeing charities using remote and hybrid working, meaning that in many cases, digital remains an absolute necessity. But when it comes to charity services, 81% are using digital tools in service delivery in some form, whether that's behind the scenes or in a supportive role or in an integral role. So there's only 19% that aren't using digital at all. Digital development is dependent on funding, capacity, and time, as mentioned. And the bigger a charity is, the more digitally advanced it is likely to be. But digital offers different things to different charities, depending on size and resources, how advanced your digital infrastructure is, and the type of work your charity does. There is no one-size-fits-all approach. You should tailor digital to your service users' need. So, how can you do that? One route is through feedback. Should have clicked the slide. One route is through feedback, often using some variant of beneficiary feedback mechanism. Basically, you want your service users to define your service delivery. You might ask for feedback using digital forms, for example, asking users to evaluate existing services and give suggestions of how they can be improved. So, how do you do that? It's pretty simple. There's stuff like Microsoft Forms, Google Forms, Type Forms. I think SurveyMonkey would be effective too. And basically, you can send these out in emails and just ask what's going well, what's not going so well, and what they would change. And that gives you a really good basis to start developing your services. Other feedback methods include suggestion boxes, a hotline, even focus groups that allow your charity to receive in-depth and highly specific feedback. These can be in person, online, or a combination of both, which depends entirely on how your service users usually interact with your services. But you should combine both qualitative and quantitative feedback to get the most useful results. There are other more indirect ways of getting feedback. Parkinson's UK gives us a really good example where they used AI to better understand their users' needs. Reacting to immediate challenges brought about by the pandemic, the charity used AI to track the topics and themes that communities living with Parkinson's were discussing online using the technique of comparative linguistics. So, this revealed key concerns among people living with Parkinson's, such as keeping fit. And in response, the charity developed some services and produced fitness sessions via its YouTube channels and other digital channels, which were led by licensed physiotherapists. This is an example of going out and retrieving feedback, even if indirectly. But whether you're using AI or not, it's just important to note that you should always try and get representative feedback from a diverse range of users. For example, making sure that there are in-person feedback methods available, particularly to those facing digital exclusion. Charities can use this data to improve services based on the perspective of users themselves. So how do you build more effective digital services? In 2024, a third of charities told the Charity Digital Skills Report that they were poor at or were not using digital school tools in service delivery. A further 45% said they were just okay at doing so. And only 18% said they would prioritize new digital services in the year to come. So that tells us a story that not many people are actually prioritizing digital in terms of service delivery, which is again something we've noticed in the engagement with our content. A lack of confidence or ambition when it comes to digital services could be due to charity workers lacking the necessary skills or problems with digital funding and training. If users feel your services would be improved by digital based on feedback and your charity is willing and able to embrace it, here are some of the common ways you can improve services by using digital. Firstly, the most common one is just to simply provide information, advice, and other resources on your website so users can access them remotely at their own convenience. And this is important, at their own time, the time of need. Charities such as community centres may have computers and laptops that their service users can access when they attend the centre, for example, if they don't have access at home. Charities can use VR headsets to help users see the past, future, or even a different version of reality to give them an insight into a new situation they may experience. The Great Ormond Street Hospital and other care homes have kind of really honed in on this tech to give people who are going to go to the homes a sort of insight into what it might feel like, so they're prepared. And it's just a really good way to use the tech. Charities can offer services like therapy and advice online through online video calling. For example, if service users are unable to attend in person. Assistive tech of different kinds can help service users attend in-person and online events and communicate more effectively with charity professionals. Charities, as we saw earlier, can use comparative AI to spot patterns to help aid decision-making, identifying similarities, differences, and relationships between data points when it comes to service delivery. Social media can be used as a platform for charities to reach the public for advocacy and change. And charities can, of course, create and publicize online petitions to support political advocacy. The best use of tech in digital services will depend on the charity, its aims, and its users. Consulting with users and learning from other organizations can help you work out the best way to use tech in service delivery. So speak to other tech charities. Today's obviously a great opportunity to do so. And the final point to mention is that digital can be really unique, and you can create bespoke services for your service users. And that might mean finding a creative way to employ the tech that only you could do. And then sharing that with other charities would always be great. In our survey, charities told us about how they were innovating in their service delivery using tech. So some said they were making teams more cohesive, and delivery teams more cohesive through technology. Others were delivering more online courses for their service users. One launched a dial and ride service to get local residents to their GP appointments. One created a bespoke and customized live streaming workflow that can be entirely controlled by an iPad or eye tracking app, and so on. So lots of examples there. And again, we'll share the slides so you can have a read, and we can share some more examples when we produce the full report as well. So digital inclusion, we touched on it briefly, and it was our impact campaign from last year, but you should always be aware of this. Embracing tech will not always be the most effective option for your users, which I mentioned a couple of times. To use probably the most common example, if a service user does not own or feel confident using a laptop, they will not be able to attend video calls from home. Expecting them to do so can be alienating and make your services less effective. There is no single approach to ensuring and tackling and making sure you're digitally inclusive, but you can start by talking to your users. If users do not want to use digital, it's best to keep non-digital options available to them. Others may want to use digital but require skills training or accessibility support or the necessary equipment to do so. And we put 3 charities that we love down here. So Good Things Foundation, the Digital Poverty Alliance, and AbilityNet. We've worked closely with all of them, and we've found them so welcoming and receptive. So if you're thinking of tackling digital exclusion and promoting digital inclusion in your service use for your service users, please get in touch with them because they're such a great resource. Cool. So next, efficiency. As a whole, digital can make your operations more efficient in your charity, thereby ensuring you have more time and resources to go towards service delivery. Over the past year, using data to make operations more efficient was a priority for 48% of charities, according to the Charity Digital Skills Report. There are plenty of examples of how to do this, some of which you're probably already doing. Measuring your impact of your services via data analysis ensures resources are spent in areas that yield the best possible return for your service users. Instant messaging and video calling platforms like Teams and Zoom support efficiency by enabling quick communication between individuals and groups. A shared intranet or wiki that contains information on how to do common tasks and processes saves time, with team members being able to work independently and consistently from a shared set of instructions. Charities can improve the efficiency of their operations through automation, reducing the amount of time spent on admin and manual processes. Automating boring tasks and tedious tasks is a great use of AI. The more boring tasks you automate, the more time you can spend on meaningful work, such as service delivery. And finally, to touch on strategy, all of the above depends on effective strategy. If you can get effective strategy, it supercharges all of the above. Our 2024 Digital Inclusion Report found that less than 2/5 of charities have a digital strategy. Writing a digital strategy is an important opportunity to make sure digital is working for your charity. It's helping you to maximize impact and improve services. Because of the scale of the digital world and the sheer number of products and services available and some of the marketing hype around them, it's important to gain focus and identify your digital priorities. For all the opportunities of digital, there are potential risks and harms involved. Charities must safeguard users by staying on top of cybersecurity and GDPR, as well as being aware of the other digital risks to privacy and safety in relation to your services. Strategy relates to everything we've mentioned above. It helps you plan for effectiveness, build on feedback, boost efficiency, safeguard users, and prepare for the future. It is vital. So to end the session, the quick session, I just wanted to touch on some key areas of focus for charities in 2025, building on some of the points we've already made to really hit home with these points. The first is to think about user-led services. This is about involving service users, as we've mentioned several times, in the decisions and processes that impact them to make sure services are effectiveness. User-led services are a way of tackling paternalism. Paternalism is an attitude or policy that overrides a person's own wishes in pursuit of their best interests. It involves a person or group of people assuming authority over other people and making decisions for them that, well-intentioned or not, prevent them from having autonomy in their lives. It goes all the way back to power dynamics formed in the colonial origins of charity work. Paternalistic approaches to service delivery create the environment for abuses of power. They can mean that people experiencing inequality or marginalization continue to do so through the systems charities use to operate. Rather than give service users autonomy over the charity's work and how it's represented, charities can often make these key decisions themselves. This links to the fact that because services are funded by third parties rather than service users themselves, the focus of charities can go to the requirements of who is paying as opposed to the needs and aspiration of those who are meant to benefit. That's why feedback is so important. I think if anything to take away from today, it's to stress feedback, and we will share some resources around that. Some argue that the harder it is to collect feedback from service users, the more likely it is to be valuable, because it is in these instances where the intended beneficiaries are especially lacking a voice. So, as we covered briefly earlier, charities should aim to create user-led services through co-production, co-design, or using beneficiary feedback mechanisms. I believe there's a session on co-design, co-production later. The second area is systems change. So some charities provide invaluable help on the individual or in community level, while others are working on a national and international scale. Some are working to prevent the causes of a problem, and others are tackling the impacts of the same problem. For charities, systems change is about zooming out to see where it's possible to intervene to stop vicious cycles and dysfunctions in systems that are causing problems we seek to tackle. It is about taking a wider lens approach to service delivery. For example, interventions can involve people and organizations collaborating rather than working in silos, in order to achieve a new outcome. In 2025, it's key for charities to embrace new opportunities to solve the problems that their service users experience, and ideally, such approaches will incorporate an ambition for systems change. The final area and the final part of this, again, rushed presentation is values. Charities uphold the values of society through their work with their communities. Charities are expected to meet high standards of ethics and responsibility as aligned with their vision of the future. And many charities are deeply committed to specific values which guide how they interact with their communities and work behind the scenes. But when charities are forced into survival mode, it can be a test to the values of that organization. That's why in 2025, it's more important than ever that charities look at how they are putting their values into practice so they can lead the way with clarity and integrity, constantly ensuring the fair and just treatment of service users. So, final point to make, and I won't be asking questions, but I will answer them because I'll gather them and answer them afterwards. But today is a great opportunity because it is a gathering of people from across the country who want to rethink approaches to service delivery. This is a call to action to make the most of everyone involved and get talking and building connections. If you're working on a new digital project or facing stumbling blocks on an existing one, in all likelihood, another charity here today has been there. Be sure to use the platform today to talk to each other and learn more about how to make the most of digital service delivery. And please always be in touch with Charity Digital if you need anything or any support, if you have a story to tell about service delivery that you think would be beneficial to others in the sector. We'll put the attendees, we'll send the attendees my contact details. I'll send my email out and I'll answer any questions that I didn't get to. And apologies for that. It was a Zoom issue, as I'm sure we've all experienced. But yeah, we'll send out loads of resources. And again, final apologies. And I'm going to end there just because I'm only 1 minute over and I'm somewhat proud of that fact. So yeah, I'm going to pass on to the next session. The next session is on exploring racism in frontline services, tackling racism in frontline services. So thanks again, and I will see you soon. Thank you.